Why are Rolex watches so expensive? If you asked people what they thought the best watch in the world was, most of them would probably assure you that it's a Rolex. The most influential people in the history of humankind have been spotted wearing a Rolex on their wrist. Well, let's go further and ask people about the price of this wonder watch. Very expensive will be the most common reply. But is there any reason why this brand costs so much? Watch this video and you'll be able to quench your curiosity. And the cherry on top will be some unexpected facts about the most expensive things in the world. But before you submerge yourself into this world of luxury, remember to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. This way, you'll always be the first to know about daily updates from the bright side of life. Some people believe that they'd have to sell their leg to buy a Rolex watch. But in fact, the price of the least expensive models, such as the Oyster Perpetual Ladies Watch, starts at $4,000. As for the mythical Submariner that James Bond once owned, you can find one for $6,500. Sure, there are certain watches that can cost up to $70,000. But even at a price of several $1,000s, Rolex watches are excellent value for the money. If you care for them, they will serve you for up to 20 years. And if you care for them really, really well, you'll have a lifetime partnership. Rolex is in a world of its own, respected and valued all over the globe. And there's much mystery behind the manufacturing process of this brand. At Rolex, there's a strict rule of no photos. Nobody knows for sure how many watches of each model are produced. But there are some cool facts that we do know. Rolex has its own scientific laboratory. They also have a research and development department. To be precise, Rolex has several perfectly equipped professional laboratories in different locations. In these labs, specialists research how to make new watches and how to make their manufacturing process more efficient. For its watches, Rolex uses steel that is particularly difficult to machine. This steel is also more expensive than most other types, though it's undoubtedly better looking. No other watch manufacturer uses this kind of steel. Their material is more corrosion and rust resistant, and it's also harder than other types of steel. Rolex has its own foundry on the premises. An in-house foundry owned by Rolex makes its own gold, which is later used for manufacturing watches. Rolex has several steel suppliers, but platinum and gold are made on the premises. This makes Rolex the only watch producer that produces its own gold in its own foundry. Rolex watches are assembled by hand. Since Rolex is pretty secretive about the topic of watch production, it's a common misconception that their watches are built by machines. There's some element of truth in this statement, as machines are used at some stages of the process. But there's more to it. Rolex has some of the finest and most sophisticated watchmaking machinery in the world. It's used for filing, cataloging, and incredibly delicate processes. At the same time, most of the machines are operated by people. On top of that, people assemble everything from bracelets to movements. Rolex can put Fort Knox to shame. It shouldn't surprise you that Rolex is crazy about security. It's no wonder with all those precious metals and watches worth many thousands of dollars lying around. So if you decide to try and gain entry, be prepared for numerous James Bond-style safety checks. You'll find a small army of gemologists at Rolex. Rolex has high standards for the materials that are used for manufacturing their watches. The same goes for the precious stones they use. Rubies, diamonds, and emeralds adorn Rolex watches. That's why there's a whole gemological department that buys, tests, and sets precious stones in Rolex watches. One interesting source revealed that out of the 20 million diamonds Rolex gemologists have tested over the years, only 2 turned out to be fake. They need 1 year to produce one Rolex watch. Yes, you heard us correctly. To produce one single watch, Rolex needs a whopping 365 days. The reason for such a long production time is the fact that almost all of the parts are made from materials prepared in-house. Also, once all the parts of a Rolex watch are ready, workers assemble them mostly by hand, and each watch is tested individually. Since the brand produces about 1 million watches a year, you can imagine how efficient this process must be. When you get to know such details, you stop wondering why you have to pay a fortune for a seemingly simple watch. At the same time, you may still have some questions about the exorbitant price of several other things. At least we do. Here are some super expensive things that can leave you at a loss for words. One feather of the Huia bird will cost you $10,000. The Huia bird is an extinct animal, and perhaps that's the reason why a single feather of this creature was sold to an anonymous buyer for a whopping $10,000. Well, this feather was the only thing that remained of the Huia bird, but still, that's a whole Rolex. $1 million for a parking spot. If you live in Manhattan, you probably know that every piece of land there carries a crazy price tag. As for a parking spot, it can turn out to be 6 times more expensive than the average American house. The very parking spot that costs $1 million is situated in downtown Manhattan. What can you do with such an exorbitantly expensive piece of land? Aha! Perhaps you could use it to park your gold-plated Bugatti Veyron, which costs $10 million and is also found on our chart of the most extravagant things in the world. As if owning a Bugatti Veyron wasn't enough, a billionaire from the Middle East wanted to customize his car. As a result, the car was fitted with gold plates. Isn't it nice when a car enthusiast knows what they want? A magnetic floating bed for $1.6 million. If you aren't satisfied with the quality of your mattress or the shape of your bed frame, why not buy a bed that will float several feet above the floor? Mind you, it's not a visual illusion. The producers of this bed used new technologies to achieve the effect. A magnetic system keeps the bed floating in the air, and the bed won't fall, even if a dozen people try to check its stability. This piece of furniture can bear more than 2,000 pounds. A crystal piano for $3.2 million. This piano is the most expensive piano to date. Its not-so-modest price tag is $3.22 million. This musical instrument is made completely of crystal. In Beijing, the piano was used during the opening of the Olympic Games. A building named Antilia costs approximately $2 billion. At first sight, you might mistake this house for a tall office building. But, in fact, it's a 27-story home where an Indian billionaire and his family live. Mukesh Ambani, the owner of the house, is the richest man in India and one of the 20 wealthiest people in the world. The 6 lowest levels of the building accommodate parking spaces for 168 cars. Above that, there's a lobby with 9 elevators leading to the living quarters. There's a huge ballroom with a ceiling that's almost completely covered with crystal chandeliers. Another convenient facility of the house is a helipad, which allows the inhabitants of the house to ignore traffic congestion and go wherever they want. There are also numerous swimming pools, a health spa, a yoga studio, a theater, an ice room with real snow, a conference room on the top floor with a panoramic view of the Arabian Sea, and hanging gardens. 600 people work full-time in the house to keep it in working order. By the way, Antilia was constructed to survive any natural disaster. The History Supreme Yacht has a $4.5 billion price tag. And if you think that a home costing $2 billion is too much, what will you say about a yacht that costs about $4.5 billion? Well, obviously, it's a highly unusual yacht. First of all, only unique and super expensive materials were used during its construction. For example, the yacht itself is made exclusively of gold and platinum. It's decorated with several fascinating statues that have real dinosaur bones in their composition. The yacht is also adorned with tiny meteorites. The owner of this wonder is a Malaysian businessman named Robert Kuok. However, some people deny the existence of this yacht, saying that it's just a clever PR campaign. It's up to you whether you believe that somewhere there's a gold and platinum yacht exploring the waters of faraway oceans. Which of these unbelievably expensive things would you like to have? Why? Tell us about your dreams in the comments below. Remember to give us a thumbs up. It motivates us to create new videos to make things more interesting on the bright side of life.